had pushed button. Now we are live in the mix with Coach Micheal Burt. Happy to have
Good
Coach
morning.
Burt on. He's America's coach, leader of Prey Drive, and he helps people find that inner lion within them to reach their full potential. Andrew met Coach Burt. I've met Coach Burt through Andrew, and now we're all here on the Never Broke a Bang podcast. And Micheal Burt is going to share what's taken him from a championship winning high school basketball coach into one of the best, if not the best business coach in America. So happy to have Coach Burt on. Glad you're here. And Andrew, I'll let you take it from here to start off.
Well, I mean, that was a good introduction. We're looking to share skills on how to never go broke again is the concept here. And Coach, I've known Coach for a year and a half. He came from being a college basketball coach, right? Which they don't. Was it high school or college?
High school. Yep. High school. Big high school in Tennessee. It's kind of like a college.
Oh, okay. High school, which they probably pay even less than a college. And now he's I don't know what the gap is between the years, 10 to 15 years, maybe something like that have gone. Now you're on the biggest stages in the country. Top, I don't know where you are. It's top 10 coaches in the country, we can say. That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah.
I think.
Good way to say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so I heard Coach and I was like, this guy this guy's real sharp. He's a wordsmith. That was my first, the first thing that registered with me. I go, this guy has a modern way of framing things. And I also think it was the Southern draw that attracted me, because a lot of coaches say the same things, but they don't always resonate. So sometimes something clicks over here with this coach, but not this coach. And that's what I think happened to me. And I think it was those two items that attracted me to your ecosystem. So yeah, please share a little bit about what's going on with you.
Well, I think to your point, there are a lot of coaches in the world, a lot of speakers, a lot of coaches. What makes them different is really their pedigree, where they came from, who they studied under, how they package a concept, how they connect with an audience. And that really is the great separator at the end of the day, because there's a lot of smart people in the world. And, I studied under a guy named Dr. Stephen Covey for really 7 years in a very, very important part of my life from 18 to 25. And what I thought I was learning was 7 habits that Covey taught, or the 8th habit, how to find your voice. What I was really learning was how to package a concept, how to take a concept and deconstruct it, codify it, package it, market it, and ultimately to sell it to help other people, right? And that's really what a good coach does. And then the decade I had as a basketball coach, really from 19 to 31, so about 12 years, that was a laboratory. I was learning, I was growing, I was testing ideas. I won championships and built a championship program. And that kind of gave me a nice 12 years of practice, really, to go out into the world and do what I do today, which is coach people from all walks of life, all backgrounds, just getting started all the way up to big players. And but it's a tough industry to be in. Coaching is a tough industry because of the amount of competition, just like everything else. There's lots of saturation. So, you just got to get good at it, man. If you're gonna make it, you got to get good at it.
So I'm curious a little bit. Are you going to coach your kids' sports teams?
I get volunteered a lot. I like to go down sometimes and just be a dad.
Yeah.
But when I go down and be a dad, I get volunteered to coach, and especially in basketball. And it's funny that you asked that, because when my daughter was 6 or 7, she was really nervous to go. First time playing basketball. And so she wanted me to go out in the middle while they're having a huddle and hold her hand. And so I just walked out there with her, and all these parents were around. And the main guy who led the whole thing said, man, we're so lucky and so fortunate that former championship basketball coach, Coach Burt, is going to be one of our coaches this year. I was like, oh, you just did it in front of everybody. I'm like, what do I say? No, I don't want to do it. So I ended up coaching that year. Now, once I start coaching, Andrew, I cannot tolerate the stuff that goes on that people don't know what they're doing. So I kind of take over. I just kind of take over and coach the team. And I'm like, all right, you guys need to stand over there on the side and let me do this, okay? Because I know what I'm
Step
doing.
aside, head coach. I'm the
Yeah,
head
like I was
coach,
like,
even though I'm the assistant coach.
step aside, dads. You guys played in the 70s, but I actually know how to do this. So I'm gonna get out here and coach these kids. That's what happened.
Something I find very interesting is there's a lot of high school basketball coaches out there, and none of them take that next step. They never step out of their comfort zone. They just, being a high school coach, I'm sure once you get comfortable, it's like, oh, this is a nice job. I make a decent living. But like, what happened that was like, hey, like, this is great. I've been successful, but I got to do more.
That's a great question. I think a lot of high school coaches, and I don't mean this negative toward them, but they don't get involved in personal development. And so they don't, they may read some sports books, but they don't really develop themselves over a long cycle of time. So although they may not be winning and they may not be very good, they kind of feel stuck, but they really believe, what else could I do? I think a lot of teachers struggle from this. It's like, what else could I do other than be a teacher? And somewhere along the way, I just got involved in personal development. And the more I got involved in personal development, the more I really loved it, the more I was intrigued by it. That's kind of what I was fascinated by when I was a coach, was kind of the inner engineering of people. And I didn't set out to do what I do today. I really just wrote a book because other people were asking me kind of what I was doing and how I was doing it. And I had a desire to help young coaches because I was a young coach. So I wrote a book for young coaches. Young coaches didn't buy it. It got in the hands of a few business people. I ended up speaking at business events like Rotary clubs, civic organizations, exchange clubs, and there were business people there. And those business people would just say, hey, man, will you come speak to my company? And I didn't know what to charge. I didn't even know it was a business really. And one guy walked up to me at the end. This is the power of an affirmation to another person. A football coach, there wasn't even a very good football coach, walked up to me and he said to me, man, you could really do this for a living. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, go on the circuit. And he said, go around the world. I still didn't really understand. And then he said, like Lou Holtz. And when he said like Lou Holtz, I'm like, okay. And I knew Lou Holtz because he was the head coach at Notre Dame. And so I went back home and I studied Lou Holtz. Well, Lou Holtz was writing books. He was coaching Notre Dame. He had a philosophy on winning. And then he was, he was making $100,000 a speech. And so I just said, this has been a philosophy that stuck with me forever, guys. I may not be able to do it. I may not be Lou Holtz. I may not be somebody who's, at a bigger brand status than me, but I can do what they're doing. And this is stuck with me today, right? If I watch a guy like Cardone doing what he's doing, or Tony Robbins, or whoever you guys study, I'm like, I can do that, and I may not be able to do it at the level he's doing it because he's been doing it 30 years and he may have more resources or whatever, but I can certainly get started. A person out there may not be able to hire a whole video crew, but they can hire a little videographer to get started. They might not be able to hire a whole staff of people, but they can hire one person, one assistant. So I began going, you know what, if he's doing it, I can do it. And you guys can't imagine the negative feedback I got from other coaches when I began to write books, speak. I mean, it was awful. They literally treated me awful. And, which only gave me some more ammunition to beat them. And then I did beat them. And then, so it's like, okay, and then who's laughing now, so I think this is what people do to people when they start to advance, man, is they kind of ridicule them. So that's what happened to me early.
A couple things. That must have been a really good football coach with bad players. If he's able to spot that, right? He was able to see something that nobody else saw, right? So that was a good football coach that spotted that. And then the other thing is, I coached tennis for a while in my 20s, trying to find myself, right? And then somebody said, well, spotted something good. They were like, you're really good at that. Go do that. So something similar. But and I always wanted to go to the big leagues, like coach a pro tour player or something, like be on the highest level. Did that ever cross your mind to be like women's college basketball, like UConn, like Gino Auriemma? And what, obviously that might've been your goal or your path, and that kind of pulled you off? Maybe, I don't know what.
Yeah, that actually was my whole dream, Andrew. My whole dream in life was to win a championship in high school and go to the college level and be the next Gino Auriemma. That was my dream. Okay. And when I was 25 years old, I decided I was going to go coach in college because I've been at Riverdale, this big high school, for 3 years. I just come off a 28-3 season. I was kind of considered an upstart, like an up and comer. And so I started applying for college jobs. I applied for junior college jobs, and I would go apply for
So wait, 28-3 is a really good record. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you credit that to? Did you have like a ton of talent? Did you just like have an unbelievable work ethic? What did you have, just better plays or?
No, I had good players with great coaching, good staff. And it was after that year that I go, okay, I'm going to go to college. And I remember applying at Sewanee. And Sewanee is like an Ivy League, prestigious. It's like a Princeton of the South, right? It's up in the mountains of Tennessee. And I remember going in there, and I brought a big notebook. This is all the things I'm going to do. And when I take over as head coach, and the athletic director said to me, "Man, you're too much." Like, he's like, these kids don't want to commit and play at the level you want to play at. They're coming here to get a Sewanee, and man, you're just too much for us. And then I
applied too obsessed.
Yeah, I was, and I was too over the top. And then I applied for some junior college jobs. And I would literally sit with athletic directors, and I had a bigger budget, I had better facilities, and I had more people coming to my games in high school. So when I applied for these junior college jobs, the job I had was better than those junior college jobs. And then I went to the University of Memphis, and I had a job at the University of Memphis. And on the way home, I just had a really bad feeling that it wasn't the right time for me to go there. And so I declined that job, and I stayed there at the high school and just built a championship program. So then the speaking thing happened, but the goal was go the route you mentioned, win a championship, go be the next Gino Auriemma. And that really was my path. I didn't even consider doing what I do today until I started doing it.
Yeah, because you can get a lot of that speaking out of your system with the kids, with the parents, even with the fans. That comes along with it. But yeah. So the coach spotted you, the football coach spotted you, and you just kind of were like, oh wow.
Well, he spotted me and he affirmed me, and he gave me some direction, and he said, you could do this. That was affirmation.
And casted a vision.
Casted a little bit of vision into me. And it's crazy because I backtracked my career back to really the speaking, starting there. When he goes, you could go do this. You're good enough to do this. And, so, and even when I speak today, I don't consider myself a speaker. I know a lot of people do. I consider myself a coach that speaks. And when I get on stage, I'm coaching people. It doesn't matter if it's 10 people or 10,000 people. And I think that's a difference maybe between me and a lot of people. I didn't grow up to be a professional speaker. I have an acumen and a philosophy. And when I get on stage, forever how long I got, 10 minutes or 45 minutes, I'm going to coach my little heart out. That's really what I do, what I like doing, right? And then if I connect with some people, I do, and some people I don't connect with. And so, and that's just part of it.
So basically, you didn't really seek this out. You did what you like to say is attracting the right people to make this from where you were as a high school basketball coach into a coach that speaks to people.
Yeah, my first year, guys, was in the recession of 08. I retired in March of 08 and started this business in March of 08. I had no real business acumen. I did go to get a doctorate in management and leadership. So I spent 4 years studying businesses, but I had never ran a business. And I just really went out and started speaking. I didn't even have a selling system. Certainly didn't have an explanation of value. I didn't have a follow-up system. All the stuff I teach today, I didn't have any of that. I literally just got out in front of people, and I would go out and speak at something, typically for free. And, there would be 2 or 3 real players in the room, and they would come to me and go, hey, I want you to work with us. And I would go say, okay, what do you want me to do? And they'd say, take this team and get them to another level. And I heard that in banks, real estate companies, mortgage companies, all of these things is what I heard. And so I would go sign 6-figure contracts. I didn't even know what I was doing. other than coaching. I knew how to coach, but I didn't really know, like today I have packages and programs. And, in those days it was literally just me go speak, turn some people on to me, get some leads, follow up, close some deals, and go to work, man, and just coach and just literally coach. That's really, that was the good old days in some ways.
So how did you pay for things in that transition?
My first couple of contracts were big. I struggled for a little bit, and then I started signing some 6-figure contracts with home builders. So I actually was making more money than I had ever made in just one contract. That's the funny thing, is one contract was bigger than what I was making as a basketball coach. So once I had 2 or 3 contracts, I'm like, man, this is crazy.
So how come you couldn't do both? What or did you do both for a little bit?
I did both early. I would go speak, and I remember this like it was yesterday. I would go speak at places during the school day sometimes, and like at lunch when I didn't have a class or something. And one day I left my school at lunch to go speak at another school that was in our school district, and the superintendent of schools was there. And he called me over at the end. He said, man, you're really good. And he's like, come see me at my office tomorrow. And I knew I was in trouble. So I went to the office, and he's like, look, you're great. We love you. You won a championship. School loves you, whatever. He said, but man, I can't let you do both. I can't let you be a high school teacher and at the same time, be speaking at other places. And he kind of caught me doing it. So I couldn't say anything. And I said, man, do you tell other teachers what they can do on their days off? I mean, I've got probably 100 days off that I've accumulated. And he said, I get it. I totally get it. But man, I just can't let you do both. So I had to make a decision and kill one of those things off. And I chose to kill off the high school coaching.
Politics, huh? Sheesh.
That's the system, man. They can't let one teacher do it without letting another teacher do it. So it wasn't fair to the other teachers. And I understand that. I mean, I wouldn't want to pay.
What were you teaching? What were you teaching in school?
Oh, I was teaching simple things: health, PE, physical education. I had a master's degree in administration. I kept telling them I wanted to be in a leadership position, but it's very bureaucratic. And so they would say, oh, well, you got to start at this little elementary school, and then we move you to a middle school. I'm like, forget that, man. I'm like,
that takes too long.
I'm like, I could run circles around people. I don't need to go through these 17 steps to do this. So I really thought I wanted to be in leadership of a school, but they wouldn't put me in leadership of the school. I mean, I did become the athletic director, so I was over the athletic department. But in high schools, many times it's like a phantom position, right? The principal ultimately decides who it is, who's coaching and who's not. The athletic director only has so much influence. And I still remember telling my boss at one time we were about to hire a football coach that I thought was an okay guy, but I asked him some key questions, and man, he just really bombed. And the answers back to me, and I begged my boss not to hire that guy, and he still hired him. And he pretty much ran the program in the ground. And I was like, man, I told you not to hire that dude. And then the other guy I told him to hire went on to win multiple championships at another school. And I was like, this guy's a winner and this guy's not a winner. I mean, I don't know how else to tell it to him. And I asked him a key question, and he had a terrible answer. And it was something like about the kids. It was something about it was about being an ambassador. I said, man, you could really be an ambassador here. People love football. You could be an ambassador for this school. And his answer was, I'm not interested in being an ambassador. I'm interested in being a football coach. And I knew by the way he answered that question that it was going to be a bad road for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my boss, but my boss didn't listen to me. Coaches
are more than just a coach, especially in high school.
Yeah. I mean, and really everything. You got to be a promoter. You got to be an ambassador for the school. You got to care about other people. And I learned that the first 3 or 4 years, I wasn't like that. I was like him the first 3 or 4 years. I was focused solely on my program. I didn't care about other people's programs. And then as I got older, I started going, you know what? I really need to be supporting these people. They're not going to support me if I don't learn to support them. And so I learned to be an ambassador. And it's probably a great mistake that I made, is I was so focused on my deal. See, as I've gotten older, guys, and really been around some of the best people in the world, you guys have seen some of those people. What they're really good at is inclusion. They're really good at including people and pulling people in and making people feel important. And I was terrible at that back in those days.
Was that just ego?
Yeah.
just young, stupid, ego. I just didn't understand. I just didn't understand the importance of it, to be honest with you. I thought if I just win basketball games, that's what I've been paid to do. If I could just do that, who cares about everything else? But that's really not how the world works. The worst thing you can lose from a person of interest is their support. And I see people do this every day. We need the support of other people to advance our dreams. And the way we lose that support is in how we either make them feel, or how we don't support them, or how we don't show up like we said. I see people make this mistake all the time, right? And that's why I always say the worst thing you can lose from a person of interest is their support. Because what they do is they take that support and they just give it to somebody else, right? It could have been you they gave it to, but they don't give it to you. And they don't tell you. They don't call you and say, hey, I'm taking all my support from you and giving it to them. They just kind of go, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with you. And I'm taking it all over here and giving it to this person. And, it's some lessons we learn the hard way. It's called expensive tuition.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if you go to a bad restaurant, you're going to remember that restaurant. If you go to a good one, you don't remember the good experiences as well as the bad experience. So it's the same thing with, would you say, how you built that program? You focus more on others and helping other people's win. And then it seems like you built like a good following, and then probably the crowds of your games improved.
Yeah. And I was at
your team could feed off that energy, right? You get that good energy in the building for a winning team, and that can really spark momentum.
And I learned so many things as a high school basketball coach, guys, because I was at a football school. I was at a place that was solely focused on winning football. Girls basketball was like way on down the ladder. Here's what I learned. Nobody paid attention to me until I won the whole thing. I had to do something that big to get anybody's attention. Nobody even cared. Nobody asked. Nobody even noticed until I won the whole thing. Then once I won the whole thing, it's like, oh. Then when our school went on to win 7 of the next 9 championships, then that gets people's attention. When you win 7 when you win 7 out of 10, then that gets people's attention. And that's what our school went on to do after I retired. So I felt like we built a foundation, we being me, the team, the coaches, everybody that was involved. And that foundation lasted for another 10 to 15 years. And then there's been a few people come in and, like they always do, run the legacy in the ground. There's always somebody comes in and screws it up at some point, right? It's like, hey, it lasted for 10 or 15 years. Then somebody comes in and just lets the whole thing down. And that's a shame, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. So how do people who are like an all-star player or an A player, Andrew likes to call it A players,
A player, B player, C player,
give people ranks, but you have great players that are terrible coaches, such as a Magic Johnson who failed as a coach, but he's very successful in other ways. But in business, if you're running something and you're the main person and you need to figure out how to start attracting these opportunities, it seems like that's kind of what you went through a little bit, Coach.
Yeah.
So how did you overcome that?
I do think A players want to play with A players. I think A players will only deal with B players for so long. And then at some point they're like, I'm out. I'm done. Right? Like I just can't do this anymore, because A players end up dragging the B players along, and definitely they don't want to play with C players. So I think what I've figured out over the years is how important having the right people is. I mean, Colin said it a long time ago about getting the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus and getting the right people in the right seats. I mean, truer words were never spoken, because trying to take average people and make them great is so frustrating. People that don't have a high prey drive, all you got to do is bring in one high prey drive person to see how that changes everything. And you'll see the significant gap between that person and people who do not have a prey drive. And quite frankly, over the years, man, you just get frustrated and you move on. And so what happens is you end up attracting, gravitate toward you end up attracting only a certain type of person. And the other people weed themselves out. Ultimately, you don't have to fire those people. They just can't make it, man. They just can't go at the pace. They don't have the engine. They just can't. They weigh themselves out.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, do you feel like someone could be a B player, but maybe they're not? They could push him into a different role within an organization and turn into an A player, like maybe like a specialist, for example. Since you're a basketball coach, Dennis Rodman as a scorer, F.
Yeah.
Defense,
Yep.
A plus.
Yep. Yeah. Rebounding, A plus. I mean, here's what I would tell you though. His whole mentality was an A player though. He understood his role.
Interesting.
And because
So
he
doing your
understood
job.
at doing your job at a very high level. That's really why Jordan respected Rodman, is because he knew that Rodman, when he was on that court, gave everything he had. Now, I'm sure Jordan disapproved of a lot of off the court antics and Vegas in the middle of the playoffs. But here's the deal. When he was on the court and showed up, there was nobody better at defense and rebounding than him. And he brought a lift. So I think big time people respect that. That dude shows up. That dude doesn't show up. That dude shows up sometimes, and so it's like you're trying to, you know what I'm saying? You're trying to really just get this thing going and all those kind of things.
Yeah, in business, I feel like it's tough. You could argue you're almost a solopreneur to an extent, right? So how do you manage that and make sure that you have A or B people around you? And then I'm speaking from more personal experience, but I do kind of maybe see that with you as well. That it's how do you build that team as being on the team and being the coach? I guess you're the coach of that team, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Just
talking out loud.
No, I see where you're going with the question. Here's what I would tell you. And this is something I'm actually considering right now. I'm actually considering bringing a person in that does nothing but build out a team around me. She has a very special skill set in the Colby Index. She can tell who will work with me, who will not be able to work with me. Because I'm typically terrible at hiring people, and I'm terrible at being a boss to people. I'm terrible at managing people, and the reason is, Andrew, I don't want to manage people. I don't want to babysit people. I don't want to motivate people every day. I'm really at a point in my life, I just want people to show up ready to go who really have a strong desire to be the best at what they do. So because I've shown a bad track record of doing this, it's led me to believe, you need to bring somebody in who is a specialist at building a team around you, right? And say, this is who I need, and just basically tell her the positions I need. I need 3 salespeople. I need 1 director of operations. I need 2 customer engagement people. I need 1 great marketing person.
So you need a translator that you talk to.
That's like that Jeff Hoffman story, right? You had dinner with a billionaire at the lodge.
Yeah.
And Jeff Hoffman said, I went and found the best HR person in the country. And then his company just exploded. Right. So that correlation. Yeah. It makes sense, but because pulling the trigger and actually doing it is another thing. Right.
Well, and I think that when you get frustrated enough with not getting the results you want, or underperforming, or not making the money, or just having a miserable life because you got to do everything. When you get frustrated enough, you will take action, and you'll say, look, I'm willing to spend the money no matter what it costs me to have a better life.
Yeah.
Okay. To do what I want to do every day. But to a guy like Dan Sullivan's point, a good employee is never an expense. The bad employee is an expense. A good employee is always an investment. A good employee should free you up to do what you're best at. Okay. Now, what many times we want to do is hire cheap people and expect them to be great. And they're cheap for a reason. Okay. The expensive people are expensive for a reason. Like, I'm launching my new book, Flip the Switch. Is coming out in January. I wanted a certain person to help me launch that book. And they said, look, you can get one of his team members and it's this price, or you can get him and it's this price. And it's clearly differentiated, right? And it's like, do you want somebody who's pretty good, or do you want the guy? And well, the guy is more expensive than the people that ain't the guy. Same thing is true of hiring a staff. Better people, more qualified, are more expensive because their talent and skill is better, but they also bring a much bigger return. And they decrease the frustration because they play at a higher level. So you don't spend all this lower level time motivating, getting them excited, all those type of things.
So do you have a recommendation on what a company's first hire needs to be, Coach?
I would say sales. I would say the number one thing in every company is revenue.
So this is a question that we go back and forth. What's more important, sales or process? Right? I
argue you need a process to follow in order to make the sales more repeatable.
Yeah, but you need some sales in the beginning. I agree with you on that, but I think you need sales and revenue to come in and then look at the process and refine it, make it better, make it more scalable, right? And then what's going to happen as you begin to scale up, you're going to start thinking, how can I do this better? How can I do, I take Monster Producer, for example, my coaching program. When we first started, you came in person. It was once a month. You came in person. And I got it up to 50, 60, 70 people, and I couldn't get people in the room. I posted a picture on my Facebook last night of that room that we were in. And, the landlord came to me and said, man, you can't get any more people in here. Like it's a fire hazard. In those days, it didn't even occur to me to go online with it. And then I went to a 10X event, Riviera Maya, Mexico, me, Cardone, Bradley, Matt Monero. And Cardone said to me, go home. Because I kept talking about Nashville, where I live, Murfreesboro, something. And he looked at me and said, man, quit talking like that. He said, go back to your city and figure out how to sell your products to anybody on planet Earth. And I went back and put my stuff online. So I said, man, we don't have to have. So then we started doing events. I like live events, but then we started having more people online than we did in person. And so, but here's the deal. We could get 1,000 or 10,000 people online. We could get 10,000 people in that room every month. So I began to scale it after I built it. So at first it started like this. Then I said, okay, we could tweak it, make it like this. Then I tweaked it and said, we can make it like this. Now today we could literally add 10,000 people to that program. And, it doesn't add one ounce of work to my schedule. I still coach the same amount every week, still coach every Monday for 30 minutes. They've got an online academy. I mean, that really is scalable. But if I didn't have the sales, I probably couldn't have the online academy, couldn't have the support staff, and couldn't have those people.
So you're definitely a national player, right? You're national. You're on the scene. You're traveling throughout the country to speaking engagements, one to many. Is a big philosophy of yours. Have you, and I see what you're saying. You're looking at going online so you can reach more people at one time, but have you thought about going global, like international, or is that, are we just kind of targeting online for that concept?
I mean, a lot of that comes organically. I've been asked to come to Dubai. I've been asked to go to South Africa. Some of them worked out. I was going to go to South Africa and it kind of fell through. And that was after 10X. They were trying to have their own version of 10X in South Africa, but it kind of fell through at the end. Dubai, we were looking at me going to Dubai this year, but I was already booked. So I'm very much interested in being an international thought leader, no different than Covey or Maxwell or Cardone or Robbins. I mean, that's my ultimate desire, is to be at that level. Right now, it just happens to be in the United States a lot because, building this is, it's not easy. I think I've been in front of 13 to 15 million people in the last 60 days through our digital marketing, but it's not like you just spend money on digital marketing and all of a sudden, boom, you blow up and you're known. There's typically some type of catalyst, right? For me, 10X was my first big catalyst. I'm hoping Flip the Switch, the new book, can be a catalyst. I have new representation from agents and speaking bureaus that I'm involved in now. But typically it's a book. Typically it's like a song making it number one, right? And you go from being obscure to being known, and you don't really know what that is. It's not like, hey, I can just pay money and do it, right? It's like something happens that catapults you.
So like 10X was like you going viral. Like a lot of kids, especially like I'm sure Andrew's kids don't they want to be YouTubers? Like Sammy or
They just liked unpacking toys on YouTube,
yeah. So
and
like
they
a lot
want
of
to
kids
do
want to
it.
go a lot of people want to go viral because they feel like that's the solution to their problems. However, once you go viral, you got to keep producing. And that's
Right.
what I feel like you've separated yourself from other people because you were already doing the work. But when you went viral, that brought in a group of people. And then, like an investment, that's compounded your business.
Yeah,
Well,
the Island Boys went viral, but they didn't. But it doesn't mean they have talent. And no offense to them, because I'm sure they figured out ways to make money. But let's say you go viral and you haven't put the work in, and you're not really that good. Then what happens is that is exposed at some point. You get it, you're right.
Mhm.
Like, and what, so it's like, yes, you can market your way today into being known, but that doesn't mean that even if you become known, that you're that good. And this happens a lot. What brings people back is the substance. What brings people back is you actually have something of value to bring another person. It's not all smoke and mirrors. It's not all hype. And, I mean, I think that's really where a lot of people struggle is it's a lot of hype. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors. They have not put the time in. It's like the speaker that has one speech that goes around the world giving the one speech just to different audiences. It's not that they have a lot of depth. They just got a speech. And so if you put them in multiple environments, could they perform? I mean, I've been in the prison systems and coached for 4 years. I've coached everything from high school kids to maximum security offenders to multimillionaires. I've worked with a few billionaires. I mean, I've worked with the small business owner to the ultra rich, to people just getting them off the streets. So, to me, that's all been valuable because it's prepared me to be good. It's prepared me to be able to go up and help almost anybody.
You do a lot of corporate coaching, business coaching, right? With large companies, one to many within their organizations. Do you do any sport coaching within like NFL teams or NBA, or have you broken into that?
When I first started, I got a request last week to speak to a college team, one of the top 25 women's basketball team. When I first started, I did that. I worked with Vanderbilt for 6 months. I worked with Ole Miss. I was going to work with Kentucky. Now, this is on the women's basketball side, because when I retired, I thought this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to coach coaches, right? Like, I know how to win. I'm going to basically coach people that do what I do to help them get better. What I couldn't find, Andrew, is I couldn't find the money. And so what I mean by
What do you
that is
mean?
that they weren't paying a lot of money to do that.
Mm.
And I'm not convinced that even the people who go in and do it today make a lot of money. I think what they do is they go in and they use that. I think they go in and they use that to build their brands. So I think if they go in and work with the university, I don't think the university pays them a lot of money. I think they go in and they kind of leverage that to say, I worked with this university or that university. And I don't blame them. I would too. But I don't think the universities compensate them a lot of money. At least that's my personal thought. I may be wrong. But I have a lot of college basketball friends who, basically say, we're not spending a lot of money on that because they expect the head coach to be able to do it. They expect the head coach to be able to motivate people. They don't expect to bring somebody in to motivate them. Now, they may come and give a talk and say, I spoke at the University of Kentucky or I spoke at the University of Tennessee, but I don't think those are big money generators for those.
Well, you have a strategic partnership with Kevin Elko, right? So have you ever asked him about that? Do they pay these people to come in and speak, or, hey, Kevin, let me get in? He was at Alabama, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's done work with so many people, but that's, I mean, he's a sports psychologist, right? And that's a little bit different than just a performance coach, in my opinion, because he wakes up every day and studies the psychology of communication. He has a different skill set than I do. Okay. So a lot of people think they need a psychologist, that's got a PhD, that's got a degree, and they're going to come in and help me get the mental part right of this. That's not really my niche. My niche would be activation of prey drive, packaging of concepts, probably help them with recruiting, how they explain their value in recruiting, that would be more of how I could help them versus the way somebody like Elko helps them. And Elko and I make a very good team, a very good complementary team to each other.
I noticed, Coach, you're taking some notes. What are you writing down?
Basically, the way my mind works in association a lot. So as I talk and unpack ideas, or as you guys say things, it triggers things in my mind, and I do a lot of mental mapping, as you know. So you may say something that triggers something in me, and I mental map something. And like a good songwriter, I'm always looking for a hook, a problem. I'm always looking for something. I go, you know what? That was a really good question. You know, that's something I think more people would be interested in, because who knows? You guys may say something today that I do a video on tomorrow, you know, because I'm always looking for content. And so as you talk, I just take notes and mental map and draw things up.
Yeah. And that's smart, because nowadays everyone has a phone. Like if you have a good idea, you can literally just whip out your phone, take a note. But just so many people don't do that. And doing something like that, I'm sure you have a good idea and you write it down, then maybe a year goes by and you come back to it. But you wouldn't be able to remember that if you didn't write it down.
Yeah, and you know, I that's just the way I process information. Is I take a lot of notes. I mean, I love a good notepad. My daughter was about to throw away a notepad last night, just an old white notepad. She's like, "Daddy, I'm gonna throw this away if you don't want it." I'm like, "No, don't throw it away. I want it." And I may sit there and watch a documentary, a TV show with that notepad and just draw circles and concepts. And you know, that's just who I am as a person.
So I believe the dent you want to make in this world is through I believe it's through the greatness factory. Is that correct? So like in 10 years, I love asking this question, I mean, I guess if somebody asked me, I'd be a little scared to answer it, because I don't like where do you want to be in 10 years? Where does Coach kind of see himself in 10 years? Retired? Or?
No, I don't think retired. I think, you know, I'm 46. I think doing more of what I love. I think I'm very interested in building a self-managed company. I think my greatest frustration many times comes from, you know, having to be too involved in sales, too involved in service, too involved in things. So I'm very, very interested in building a company that sustains and manages without me, so that I could be more like the talent. I do think we'll have greatness factories around the country. I think success schools will be bigger. They could eventually be real schools that kids go to, like physical schools that people go to. Hopefully,
can you host them inside the greatness factories?
You could. We actually are in talks with a group out of Houston that is interested in having a physical success school in their building. The one in Nashville is not set up to have one inside because the space and how we're trying to utilize that space. But I could see at some point, you know, I don't know if I want it inside the Greatness Factory. I may see it as a standalone brand. I'm big in diversity of brand. So the reason I do that is because if this doesn't work, then that can work. I see success schools being its own brand, so it could be standalone from Greatness Factories.
I feel like college has become the new high school. And most people that are like really good at business don't have the grades to go to like an Ivy League school, like a Yale or a Harvard. Because you talk to these people that own large companies, they're like, yeah, you know, I was a dropout, but you know, I got Yale degrees, I got Harvard degrees. I think Andrew likes that phrase. You know, I got PhDs.
I got 2
working
MBAs. Brad Lee always says that.
I got PhDs working for me, all that sort of stuff.
How does this guy have a resting heart rate of like 40? It's just nuts. He's so calm. It's the craziest thing. I wish that, you know, mine's got to be 80. So maybe that, but that's got to be genetic or something.
But so the big problem is all these kids are going to school, then they're coming out with debt, and then they get a job that pays no money. So I guess this is not a question you have to answer today, but just something I thought about as you were talking about the greatness factories. If you can create something kids could go to without having to take on that sort of debt, but can propel them into a situation that you've created for you and your family, how powerful could that be?
Well, the problem with most kids is they're not skilled, and they're not willing to pay the price to apprenticeship under someone to gain the skill that they need to be compensated. You know, so they come out of college and they want to make $200,000, but they got a $50,000 skill set. If that, probably got a $25,000 skill set. So, they don't understand the power of refinement of a skill over a cycle of time to where it becomes really valuable. I've had people that were 25, 26 years old making $90,000 to $100,000 for me and thinking they were underpaid. And that's society, and I just tell people, I love you, but I'm not going to pay you $150,000 when you don't have a $150,000 skill set. It's just, go somewhere else and see if you can create that money. And then they typically go somewhere else and figure out they can't create the amount of money that they were making for me, so I just think, I think the real problem is you should go for the mentor over the money. I think Cardone's right about this. You spend a lot of your life being underpaid, gaining a skill set, and at some point in your life, you become overpaid. For me to go out and speak and make 25,000 in a day, some people say it's crazy, but I worked 10 years making 25,000 a year, gaining a skill set to make 25,000 in a day.
That's
or
like the story of
100,000.
Picasso.
Yeah, exactly. And that's there's accuracy in that though. So I just, I really just think that people have this lost art of mastery. Robert Greene wrote the book on mastery, and it's a lost art in our society. Very few people have mastered anything. They're dabblers. They don't decide. They've got weak skills. They want more money, and their skill set just don't support it, man. And you just, it just doesn't support it. And that's really why the quality of work is so weak everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people on earth, right? So, can't all be masters.
You know that story of Picasso, though, Andrew or Coach?
Nah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. He walked up to Picasso and said, "Paint a picture for me," and he did it in just a few minutes. And the guy, he charged X amount of dollars, and the guy said, "Man, why is it that much? It's crazy." And he said, "I spent my whole life being able to do it in 10 minutes."
Yeah, it only took you 10 minutes. Well, it took me a lifetime to learn.
Yeah, it took me a lifetime of learning so I could do it in 10 minutes. So, I think a lot of people want to speak and coach like I do. And man, they figure out that this is hard. It ain't as easy as it looks. The people who are good make it look easy, but it ain't easy. Okay. And I think when they go out in the world and they try, then they figure out it ain't as easy as they thought. It'd be like me trying to be an NFL football player tomorrow. Those guys make it look easy, but it ain't easy. Okay. Or getting on a stage and performing, it looks easy. Oh yeah, it'd be great to get up there and sing for 2 hours. That'd be right. That ain't easy. But until you try to do it, you don't know how hard it is.
Who's your favorite speaker?
I don't know that I have a favorite speaker. I do admire coaches and their philosophies. I was speaking at 8% this year, and Ed Milet has got significantly better at his delivery, and his message has become very impactful from a stage. Okay, on his concept of one more. I'm a big fan of Dan Sullivan because of how smart he is. I don't look at it like that's a great speaker. I think there's a lot of great speakers. I mean, people may look at somebody that they say that's a great speaker, and I may say, yeah, they're a great speaker, but they've been giving that same message for 30 years. I mean, there is no variety whatsoever. Now, you don't change your message, but you should change it at least every year. I mean, you shouldn't have the same talk for 10 or 15 years. Right. And just keep finding the same audiences, so there's people that would be considered great speakers, great orators. Then there's people that would be considered, man, the dude's got great content. And it'd be like, oh, that person really connected with an audience. There's people that are good at different things. And, I just like somebody who's engaging, connects with the audience, touches your emotions, makes you think deeper, walk out of there and go, man, that was good. That was really good.
What about books? What books are you reading right now, or do you recommend?
Right now, I'm reading The Self-Managed Company by Sullivan, Cash Confidence by Sullivan. It's interesting because I went through strategic coach for 3 years in my 30s. And as I built a coaching company, a lot of the stuff that went on back in those days that I didn't quite understand makes a lot more sense to me now. And I just think Sullivan's structures are really, really powerful and making you think about how to build a company, how to work in your unique ability area, how to enjoy life. versus,
He's also
the business.
pushing lifespan a lot lately. I follow him too. He's great. I think he's an older guy. Sounds like it, at least. I don't think I've ever seen him, but he's pushing
78.
lifespan. What are your thoughts on that? Is that possible? He's saying he's going to, goal to live the 140, 160, that's just expanding somebody's vision.
Yeah. 156 it's a mind trick, but with, I think you can extend life if you do the gene testing, if you do what Daniel Amen is doing with the brain scans, if you really get serious about your diet and cut out things that hurt you. I mean, it takes a lot of discipline, but I think if you study the work of Gary Brecka, who I'm real impressed with, of 10X Health, I think these guys are really good. And Sullivan believes he's going to live to 156. I think 122 is the oldest a person's ever lived. But who knows if he lives to be 110? He's 78 years old, still going strong. So
Yeah. Some of these people fall off they fall out of the public eye at some point. So it's hard to track, kind of, okay, maybe it's their purpose. I don't know what it is that I've noticed over the years. They retire and they're done. And then you hear they passed away, and you're like, oh, okay, 98 or something, 95, something like that. So maybe it's the work just has to never stop. I don't know. Putting out the content. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here.
Well, wasn't it like the average age people lived to, like when America was founded, was like really low, but all the founding fathers lived into like their 80s?
Yeah, the concept of retirement was created by the government, and they're not very good at creating ideas. It's nowhere in the Bible. It talks about retirement. The government created it. Sullivan's definition of retirement is all used up. You're no longer valuable. And because I do think people run out of purpose, and I think purpose is probably, or something to look forward to in the future that gets you excited, is what keeps you living, man. It's what keeps you young. I think and hanging around younger people keeps you young, keeps you vibrant, one thing I like about Cody Askins, he's about 15 years younger than I enjoy doing stuff with him because he's young, he's hungry, he's got a lot of prey drive, he's vibrant, he's trying to make it in the world. And I respect that. I respect being around people who are out there trying to do it.
Taking a lot of risk, such a young age. It's scary. Yeah. I mean, maybe not for some people, but I can't imagine taking what he rented a jet. He mentioned he rented a $200,000 jet, and then he sold the seats on it for $320,000. So he made $120,000, got out of the hole. So that's thinking big. Yeah.
Yep. Totally agree. Totally agree.
Well, Coach, this has been great.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for coming on the Never Broke Again podcast, and we look forward to seeing you in the very near future.
Thank you guys for being one of our clients, and thank you for believing in me as a coach, and thank you for having me on the Never Go Broke Again
Never
podcast.
Broke Again. We had Garrett. We have Gary Breck on a few episodes ago, but you probably have heard all his content.
Yep, and then he's impressive. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, he's